So the 21 Pilots hiatus has started to settle in, and the 21 Pilots lore is no more. We wrap that sucker up, baby. But the people have questions. There are some lingering questions that the people have, and we're gonna talk about it today. All the Christmas decorations I have as of right now, so enjoy that. But yes, I asked you guys to share with me some of your lingering questions about the 21 Pilots lore. What didn't make sense? What did you want to see more of? Just things that were left unanswered. And we're going to talk about it today. I'm not saying that I have all the answers, but maybe we can just, try to figure something out, because that's my job. I use my psychology degree to explain 21 Pilots lore on the internet. Fun. So let's get right into it. My good friend Molly said, I wish I knew more about the symbolism behind Chlorine because I never seem to get it. Yeah, Chlorine is kind of those interesting ones because I feel like it's so its own thing. If you look at the music video, it is technically lore related because Ned's in it and Ned is a part of the main story, but it just feels like a spin-off episode, really. But I can provide some explanation for the Chlorine music video, at least my interpretation. I've made an entire video on Ned and what I think Ned represents, but a too long didn't read version is I think Ned represents creativity, more specifically Tyler's creativity. Now you could argue that everyone has a Ned, which is why there's a whole island of Neds, because everyone has their own creativity, but he represents being creative, having an imagination. And so the way I interpreted the Chlorine music video is how Tyler deals with his creative mind. He's always constantly creating things to satiate that urge to create things, right? And even when he fills the pool up with chlorine, his mind isn't happy. It just starts all over again, and he has to start with that empty pool, which I kind of interpreted that as an album cycle, him filling the pool up with chlorine is writing an album and starting to write all these songs, and then when Ned jumps in the pool, that's peak album release, you drop the album, everyone's happy, everyone's analyzing it, everything's going great, and then the pool's empty. The hype for that album dies down, people are wanting more, much like Ned wanting more chlorine, wanting more water, and so Tyler's having to deal with that constant cycle, again, of always trying to be in that creative space, always trying to be creative, always trying to write music. And that's just how I envisioned it, but I'm not saying that's the right answer. You can also look at the Ned breads in the Backslide music video, just as a side thing, as an extension of Ned being, his art. I saw the Ned breads as Tyler's creative work becoming marketable, how he sells music to us and that's his career, and how Tyler is trying to sell a product now. He's trying to sell, his thoughts, his imagination. But that's just me. Local Daydreamer asks, also, the citizens from the Overcompensate music video with the red tape, whatever happened to them? I asked the same question because they seem to just disappear. At the final battle, with Paladin Strait and even City Walls, they're just not there. Which they should be there, because there was a Clancy letter that mentioned that both Red and Yellow had unified for this final battle, right? But they're just not there. I guess if you wanted to kind of explain this, they might be inside Dema, because it seems like all of the red tape banditos that we see are within Dema, so maybe they were actually inside the city, which is why they weren't outside the walls with the yellow banditos. I'm not sure. But yeah, they just left. Sun's Blood said, I started wondering if there's other civilizations beyond Dema. I mean, there must be, since we see some houses in the Saturday music video and there's a port to the city. They wouldn't have a port if there wasn't any shipping being done. Plus, there's a highway we see in Heavy Dirty Soul. All of that points to other cities beyond Trench. I mean, yeah, it certainly seems like there is a world of Trench. It's a whole entire continent, so it would be weird if there was just one city and then everybody else is just banditos who live in tents. I wish we could have gotten into that world building more, maybe, because there does seem to be these hints of things outside, but then I also feel like that takes away from the symbolism of what Dema and Trench represent. So it makes sense that they focused on those two places, but Yes, absolutely. I do think there's things in the beyond. Ismo the Gizmo 27, I hope I'm saying that right, said, some things I wish we knew more about is the bishops. I really wish we somehow in the letters, music video, songs, anything got their backstories. Yeah, the bishops are very cool, and they do feel like something that's unexplored because there are 9 of them. That's a whole big number. I mean, that's Santa's sled team. You can have a whole you can have a whole reindeer sled team with the bishops and Dema. Somebody draw fan art of that. Fan art of that now. Yeah, there's a whole lot of them. They seem to hold a lot of power, and I would have loved to see more of them. I mean, we did get a tiny little smidge of Keons, but yeah, I would have loved to see more of that. If we look at the City Walls music video, we can assume that they were once past Banditos, just regular people who just were a part of that cycle. That would be a good spin-off series if that was a thing. Ned Bayou Official, who I see a lot in my comments, hi Ned, says, I personally want to know more about where the Ned species comes from, why they drink chlorine, how the bishops took their antlers, and how the Neds even know how to seize. Of course you're asking about Neds. Ned, shouldn't you know all of this? You're Ned. You're officially Ned. You should know all these answers. No, I'm just kidding. I think I kind of touched on this with the chlorine music video thing, but I think the Neds drink chlorine just to symbolize how much energy, how much time, how like hungry a creative mind is, and how it's constantly wanting to be fed. How the bishops took their antlers, I'm not entirely sure. Like physically, I don't know. Should we call in PETA or something? Don't call PETA. And how the Neds even know how to seize. I know kind of a metaphorical answer. Because of what the Neds represent, I think it's supposed to parallel how Tyler uses his art, how he uses his music to deal with these negative things in his life. So because the Neds represent that, I think that's how they know how to seize, but literally, I don't know, man. Josh Dunn's Drumstick said, here is my dad's theory. Since the paint isn't all the way up his face, maybe Nico and Clancy are fighting internationally. I think that's supposed to mean internally, but internationally, to see who can take over the body. They're fighting for who can take over the body. That would go along with what we've seen before, this duality of Tyler being 2 people, and a lot of the times how he's both Blurryface and Clancy, and how it's this constant like headbutting of those 2 entities. My own personal theory is that the lowered bishop paint represents how this cycle is continuing, but it's lessening. So maybe eventually that paint will keep going lower and lower until that cycle is finally broken. And so by the bishop paint being different, it represents, yes, the cycle did continue, but there were changes. Like, it did get slightly better, even if Clancy did end up being a bishop. Which ties into the whole, next semester, oldie station, where really the only thing you can do is take what you've learned from the last cycle and apply it to the new cycle, and hope that the next cycle of your life is better than the last. But that's just me. Xwinter _ probably 2 underscores there, I don't know. Ryder X9155 says Taco Bell Saga 3. Yeah. I wish for that too. Tazzy Lee said, I wish we learned more about how the Dema citizens and Banditos live. Yeah, again, I feel like it's very hard to branch out when the symbolism of the world is so, like, Tyler's mental health. This represents different headspaces Tyler's in. This represents Tyler's journey. So, of course, it is very Tyler-centered. And so, while it'd be very cool to explore this world, I see why they didn't, because I think it takes away from what the story is and what it represents. But yeah, I would have loved to have seen it too. Vizzo Mom says, a few things. Oh boy. The purple resurrection thing that was so popular. Yeah, I did get a couple purple comments. That kind of went nowhere, didn't it? You'll see in this video, there were a lot of things that started that felt like they weren't concluded in any way. I don't know if that was just like a thing that maybe we didn't finish or figure out, because I don't think Tyler would start something and not finish it, but who knows. They also mentioned multiple torchbearers and multiple Clancys, which I've gotten that comment a couple of times. Do I think every iteration of Clancy is Tyler? No, because there have been Clancy letters where Tyler and Clancy, probably a previous Clancy, have been in 2 separate spots at the same time. And it'd be really weird if there were just a bunch of Tyler clones all over the place. So no, I don't think Clancy is Tyler all the time. I think what Clancy represents can be anybody. This idea of being hopeful, this idea of fighting for what you think is right, fighting to be better, fighting to live in a better world. That can be anybody. And because Clancy wears a mask, I've compared him to Spider-Man, where it's like, it's what Clancy represents, not what he physically looks like. And so I do think there's probably different Clancys. I feel like Clancy probably looks different. As for Torchbearer, I don't think there's multiple Torchbearers. I mean, yes, he has that astral projection thing, and Vizio was not talking about that, but I did get another comment saying, like, is Torchbearer the same guy every time? I think so. I think while he does have these powers, I think it is Josh. Josh is the Torchbearer for every Clancy. I don't think there's multiple Torchbearers. Maybe in the past? I don't know. I did get a lot of comments asking about, like, Torchbearer's lore and, like, wanting to explore that. I would have loved to have seen that, because he's such a mysterious character. I think that's part of, like, his allure. Like, he didn't talk for the longest time, and when he posted that I am Torchbearer video, I was like, he freaking talks? What the frick? I thought he just stood and held a torch and looked mysterious. I didn't know he spoke. I know a lot of people kind of interpreted him as this, like, supernatural, almost angelic-like character, which I've made videos about that, and I'm totally into that interpretation. But it seems like he too was just a normal Dema citizen, and how did he rise to power? How did he become the Torchbearer? How did he get those Godzilla powers? Why are there multiple versions of him? There's, like, a lot of questions about the Torchbearer that I don't know, man. I also got a couple of comments asking about the leaked songs, about how there were some title names that we did not see anything of, but Drag Path was confirmed to be real, but none of the other ones went anywhere. I'm not entirely sure. We may see them be released later down the road. I don't know. Again, it's like one of these things where it's like, is this like a dead end? Did Tyler just forget about it, or did we just not figure it out correctly? And lastly, how many takes did it take for Josh and Tyler to do the leotard video without breaking character? I think just one, because I think that's just how they live. Like, that's, like, normal for them. 8th Furno asks, what is just a theory and what is canon? That is a loaded question, because I feel like there's a lot to that. So, this is just me. This is how I rationalize it. But I think the literal things that happen in the 21 Pilots universe is canon. Things mentioned in the I Am Clancy video, I Am Torchbearer, things like that. The literal actions of these events. I think what is theory, not Siri, come on, man. I think the theory aspect of the 21 Pilots universe comes in when we start talking about what those events mean. Obviously, at this point, it's canon that the 21 Pilots universe is Tyler's mental health journey. But there's so many different ways somebody could look at that and then interpret that. You know, they're obviously going to look at this story and apply their own meanings, apply their own journey into this thing. And so that's when I start to think it's delving into theory, when we try to explain why these events happened and what they represent. Even though there's still some canon into that, I don't know, it's a very thin line. Like, when I made my lore explanation video for the first time, like, it was so hard to be like, this is what we think happened, but it's, you know, it's kind of just fan speculation. There were a couple of comments talking about the new Banditos and how they were so willing to accept their new roles, so willing to just kind of give up their goal. I think when we interpret this story literally, it does seem weird that they're just like, well, okay. But then I guess you could say that they were just following Clancy. Like, they've kind of idolized this guy, so maybe they were just going along with whatever he wanted, but it does seem a bit strange. We can conclude, though, that all of the bishops have been Banditos in the past, and all the Banditos have been Dema citizens, and so it's this, like, constant cycle of people becoming different things. And so I think what the bishops represent is that anybody can backslide, you know, anybody can have a change in mindset. Everyone can have setbacks in their mental health journey. And so when you interpret it like that, it makes sense as to why they changed. But yeah, when you look at it literally, it's just like, well, they gave up fast. No wonder this cycle's been going for a while. Attack Lizard has quite a long comment, so let's just go through this in parts. I watched all of the lore videos today and noticed some things I thought I'd share with y'all, like my theories or symbols that I notice. In Levitate, we see a vulture a lot, along with a vulture being the cover of Trench and a symbol of the Banditos. In Paladin Strait, however, we see the vultures controlled by the bishops above the Banditos, spying on them. I think this is an analogy of some sorts between Clancy and the Banditos. At first, he was a symbol of hope, but then led to lead them to become a bishop. Yeah, absolutely. It doesn't seem like the Dema citizens like the vultures. There's a slang term that they call them trash dragons, and they are heavily associated with the Banditos because they can go anywhere. Much like a Bandito, the lore talks about how a vulture can go to Dema and Trench freely. They kind of live in this between space. They're free to go wherever they want to. We go where we want to. Lame boy reference. I don't know, man. Me making connections that don't exist. But yeah, I absolutely do think the vultures represent Clancy, or at the very least they treated them the same as Clancy, which is really cool. I'm just now realizing that. Clancy started out as this symbol of hope, much like the vultures, and so much like the vultures being seized, we had Skeleton Icy. We had Clancy being forced to spread this propaganda that he was dead, like what he represented was dead. And he was forced to join the bad guys for a little bit before turning good and then turning evil again, but regardless, good eye. Another analogy I noticed was the flower petals in Jumpsuit in the contract. The Banditos threw yellow petals at Nico in Jumpsuit to ward them away, and towards the end of the contract we see red petals surrounding Clancy. Red resembles the bishops, and I think the switch up shows Clancy heading towards becoming a bishop. Yes, I think the contract video is showing, because it's blurry face kind of projecting into Tyler's mind, or Clancy's mind, excuse me. I do think it's Nico's attempt to corrupt what Clancy sees. We see the audience there as well, the red-eyed audience, which in the Breach tour, because of the light-up bracelets, the audience represented the red eyes, and so I think that's Nico trying to corrupt the audience, corrupt live performances for Clancy, and so I think the red petals were an extension of that, Dema almost mocking these yellow petals. And also major foreshadowing that Clancy becomes evil. Last part, also a theory that why Clancy ended up becoming a bishop is that when he found out Torchbearer wasn't actually there with him in reality the whole time, he got upset and felt betrayed. This can go with how people struggling with mental health gets upset with people trying to help them sometimes, but that's how I interpret it. Yeah, your theory is kind of based in Canon a little bit if we look at navigating. Even lyrically, he talks about how Torchbearer is this, safe place for him. He keeps him grounded, he keeps him level, keeps him on the good side of things. And even in the city walls where he goes, I wonder where you are, in my interpretation, he's looking for the Torchbearer. He's like, I wonder where you are. I wonder, where are you when I needed you the most? And also that whole video of Clancy not being able to see the Torchbearer even though he was there the whole time. I do think there is something to that. I do think Clancy felt like he was left behind, and maybe that was the final push into becoming a bishop, even though Torchbearer was there the whole time. And going into what you said, I do think that represents there are people in your life that care for you and that would be there for you like a Torchbearer, but maybe they're not saying it. Maybe they're not speaking up. Maybe they're not asking you how you are. For somebody struggling who may not know that they have those people in their life, they may not see it. They may not know that there are people that are going to help them and may feel like they've been left behind. So what I'm saying is it's important to check on your friends. If you think something's going on, even if you don't, just check in on your friends. Ask them, see them, just see what's up. When does Joshler come into the story? Baby, it was always in the story. That's the whole story. I should clarify I'm joking, by the way, because there's some people that take Joshler a little too seriously. Stop doing that. Stop doing that. Joshler is not real. I'm sorry. I'm really sorry. But stop making it weird. Stop saying that Tyler is miserable in his marriage. And the last comment I have is assumingly about the Clancy shirts. Yeah. Yeah. The Clancy shirts did end with always. And so that kind of parallels with Torchbearer saying that we will always try again. And so I interpret that as there's always going to be a Clancy. There's always going to be a reason for hope. There's always going to be a reason to fight. And so Clancy is always. So yeah, glad we had this little talk. I guess I should talk about what 21 Pilots content is going to look on this channel during the hiatus. I don't claim to be a 21 Pilots YouTuber, even though I make 21 Pilots content. It's a title that I fight a little bit because I do make other content and I like to be known for that other content. And I know it's so easy to be like, well, just don't make 21 Pilots content if you don't want to be a 21 Pilots YouTuber. I know, but I just enjoy it. Even though that's not the only thing I do and it's not the thing that I want to be known for entirely. And so as we dive into this hiatus, you probably will see a lot of content that's not related to 21 Pilots. I'm sorry. I'm sure there will be a random analysis video. There's probably going to be like some funny shorts about 21 Pilots, probably. I plan on doing a lot more drum covers just in general, but there are 21 Pilots ones there, so 21 Pilot content is still on the way. Maybe not as frequent, just because the band isn't doing a lot, but still. But they'll still be in Groovy Nation in some way or another. Thank you for sharing your thoughts with me. Glad we can talk about the 21 Pilots lore, even though it is over. Big sad. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to hit like and subscribe to join the Groovy Graveyard. Shout out to my patrons over on Patreon, and I will see you in the next one.